So good evening, everybody. This is another session of Free to Heal, where we are formerly incarcerated and loved ones, and we come together every week to heal from the ravages of mass incarceration, what it's done to all of us, our families, and our communities. And we are glad that you guys can be with us today. And I am going to, my topic today, before I do that though, is there anybody that had a topic that they was burning in their ear? Because that's my thing, is to make sure if you guys have something that's going on rather than what I'm thinking about, I would like to give you guys an opportunity to discuss that. If you have, just speak now, let me know, roll with it, and I'll go from there. Otherwise, I want to talk about something that I discovered today in my group at Solano. It hit me as I was talking to them that this is something I don't think we have ever talked about in terms of what happens to people and how it feeds into trauma and incarceration. And that is the wounds from the mother. We have talked about it, and I've only done it twice because it turned out to be very sensitive and a very difficult conversation for participants, which was the wound of an absent father, or the wound of a poor relationship or lack of a relationship with a father. But you know, there's always this whole thing about when people are in prison, that on Mother's Day, there's all these cards and all these things going out, and on Father's Day, not so. Well, the one thing I've learned, I've been since 2013, I have been teaching in women and men's prisons in some variety since then, other than during the pandemic years. And it just hit me today how many incarcerated people touch on, but never really fully unpack the relationship or lack of relationship with their mothers and how much damage that does. So I want to say there are, and this can be anything from being an abusive mother. One of the guys that was on the call today, his mother used to beat him so bad that he would use the bathroom on himself. And I'm talking about as a 2 or 3 year old kid. There are people whose mothers were not there due to, or were not, they may have been present, but they were irresponsible because of addictions that would take them away. There are mothers who were just irresponsible, period. And we never talk about the wounds that happens to us as a result of mothers not being there. Or I dated a guy and his mother betrayed him. She stole from him and gave it to her husband. And these kinds of wounds leave deep scars. And I could tell you right now, I feel the tension. I feel the trembling. I feel it. See, the last time, Tony, this happened to me was when we were talking about the dads, and I didn't know what this silent, nobody's moving, nobody's breathing was. I know what it is this time. But we're going to have to talk about it, because it is, I would venture to say, as devastating, if not more devastating, than the father wound. You want to talk to me about it?
Tell me?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Can you slide up a little bit? I just want them to be able to
I mean, oh.
They fighting already. Look,
I think, you know, for me, when I can look back upon my 58 years, there's always been this trajectory that we have had to deal with the man being absent in some form or fashion. I was always the exception because my mom,
not in the game, and I can move
and I had 5 uncles, and so I had 5 fathers that I could depend on, and there was just one missing. You know, after my brother's death, all 6 of them were missing, which was completely devastating for me. But as my uncles came home in different periods, it was like I regained them back, and you become immune to it, you become accustomed to it. But your mom being missing, your mom is that glue that is supposed to hold the households together. And so, and it is what society teaches you as well. And so I had my grandmother to give me that glue. But for those children who did not have their mom, the glare was even stronger. And trust me, you know, me and my mom have that glaze where she was not present for me. But as I look at the conversations of the first wave of mass incarceration in the 1800s, right? It was, we're going to take the man away, and then we're going to take his son away. And what did we do? We adjusted, and then we got to the next wave of, you know, civil rights chivalry. The man was missing. We adjusted. We got to the 70s, heroin, the heaps of drugs. We adjusted. It wasn't until they literally attacked our communities by incarcerating our mothers and our sisters and our aunts and our female cousins that our communities took the biggest hit, because the government realized, damn, we've been taking the man out of the household forever, and they keep adapting. How do we break them? We break them by taking the mothers. And granted, the man, take nothing away from the man. The man gives us the strength. He gives us all of these different things. But that internal strength that we are always possessing is that core that came from our moms, came from our mothers, came from our aunts. They were silent, but it was silent strength. And when I watched Ava DuVernay's The 13 and realized I could go back and track, you know, I've often talked about being the only kid in the neighborhood, or the only house in the neighborhood where the police would show up. And it was consistent all of my life, from birth to 5 to 10 to 13. My brother died 15, 16. Now it's his house. 16, now it's his house. 17, now it's their houses. 18, by 18, I was counseling an entire community, but it was because their mothers came up missing, and there was no way to adjust to that, you know. And I think that for me is, from what I see, is the bomb that was dropped on our neighborhoods that said, okay, we've already been incarcerating all these men, and then talking about just our jail, just our prisons. California, since 1980, we have built 1 university and 22 prisons. We only have 33 state prisons in California. So 67% of those prisons were built since 1980. What does that say about how many people? They ran out of men to lock up, because either they were too afraid to commit the crimes, or they just weren't getting caught. So they flipped over and said, okay, now we're going to take the women. And they took the women from that period, 1980 up until now, to a guise of something, you know, that averages out to like 600% that they were incarcerated. So for us, the mother was that comfort, that person, you know, the baby, the child, whether it's male or female, could always go run to their mother. Wildfire. Kind partner relationships per se with their dads, or their dads were missing. But to take the mother out of the neighborhood, to take the mother out of the household, we still haven't recovered.
It's like you took the foundation.
Yeah, we still haven't recovered from. Yeah, we haven't recovered, because a woman could have welfare. You know, if I get rid of him, you gonna give me a check for me and my kids, right? So that was another way to devastate our households, but it kept the woman intact. But the minute you start to incarcerate and remove the women, then the whole structure falls apart. And like I said, we still haven't recovered.
Thank you so much. And one of the things I wanna say one thing about that too is what changed in the 80s was crack. It was so my personal history is my dad and my aunt and uncle all got on heroin in the 60s. And my mother took my cousins, put my dad out, and took in my cousins. That is why there wasn't a lot of foster care, right? There wasn't a lot of foster care back in the 70s. Because like you said, all the way back to slavery, we adjusted them. Right. No, you didn't go to foster care, right? So all the way back in slavery, when a mother was sold away from her children, or a child was sold away from her mother, they other women gathered around them, took them in, nurtured them, and so forth, because of the nurturing nature of the woman, just the DNA, the structure, what we were built to do. So there's that glue. It's like that book of Man is like a waffle and woman's like spaghetti. Well, the spaghetti, if you notice, it'd be all convoluted, but it's all the meatballs up mixed up in there, but it's all in there. It's all together, no matter what it looks like, but it's still together. When you take away that element, then everything is just all over the place, right? And so that is what but I want you to understand, and I want anybody listening to understand, it was intentional.
It was said, if you watch the 13th, they tell you that they intentionally put those drugs in our neighborhoods. It was deliberate, it was intentional, and I mean, you guys heard me say in a joke or serious. Nancy was standing outside on the White House lawn telling the kids, say no to drugs, and Ronnie was selling dope out the back of the White House to Oliver North. And he was carrying it right on down the street or across the traffic circle and selling it right to those brick housing projects that sit behind the White House. Literally, that's what happened with the Oliver North situation. But in that plight, if you take out the woman, if you take me away, and then I teach my sister to smoke, you take her away, and then my mother or my friends, you take all of us away, we could no longer contain our households and our communities. And so that's when the welfare system and the CPS system, I should say, exploded.
Well, and what it did too was simultaneously, because I know a woman who served 18 years for $800 worth of stolen goods to support her crack habit. 18 years away from her children for that. But what it did was simultaneously they instituted a system where, in order for your children to continue to receive assistance after 5 years, you had to put them on meds. So Ritalin and all of that stuff is also very addictive, and it is all connected, and it created another nexus to drug addiction. And that's why part of why the meth, because the only thing that mimics Ritalin in the body is meth. So that's why you have this explosion of meth. And one of the things I will say that they did not anticipate was, which they should have, they didn't anticipate the suburban little girls coming to meet them little fellas in the hood selling that dope.
They anticipated a minute amount of casualties of war. What they did not count on is the catastrophic effects that it had on suburbia America.
Right.
They said if we can get 5%,
Eh,
I can live with
we can
that.
sacrifice them. Yeah, we can
I
sacrifice
live
them.
with
Yeah,
that.
we can
They
sacrifice them. Yeah.
expect it to be 5 and 30% and 40%.
So that's when they want to do something, then when they start hitting them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
in 1989, I went to the dentist to have surgery. They gave me Vicodin in a manila envelope about this big over the counter after my surgery. At that time, I didn't know that I was allergic to it. I took that Vicodin and damn near ended up in the hospital. But my aunt said, "Oh, you don't want to take it?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I don't do that. I don't do that. It's not working for me." And she was like, "I'll take it. Here, it's $20. I'll take it." But she was already using crack and she was already doing pills and what have you. And so we talking about 1990. It did not hit me until I was listening to my mom having a conversation about the amount of women that were coming into her program with these addictions to Vicodin, to Oxycontin and other things. And I finally realized, can you imagine today? I almost had an argument, or I had an argument with the doctor about Vicodin. I didn't even want it because I'm allergic to it. And I was trying to explain that to him, but he was trying to make it seem like, "Oh, you want this." And I'm like, "No, I don't." But today we will sit up here. They will tell you, "Oh, you can't have that." Oh no, it's going to take an act of Congress for you to get it now because it's destroyed white America, right? But I got it from the receptionist in 1989
Envelope.
in an envelope this big from a person who didn't even have a medical career. Bring it from a receptionist. And that was on purpose. That was very intentional. And then I figured it out because every time I would go to the doctor at Kaiser, who's one of the biggest medical facilities in California, the first thing they would say to me is, "Okay, you in pain? You want Vicodin?" I'd be like, "No, I don't want no damn Vicodin. No, give me Tylenol." And they would be looking at me like, "Oh, you don't want Vicodin?" And didn't even know that I was allergic to it until I had surgery. No, they didn't care. They was just passing it out like candy, but they were passing it out because what we find out, the connections continue. What we find out is the pharmaceutical service reps were peddling Vicodin and they were peddling it to the doctors and giving the Kaiser, big pharmas were giving them kickbacks in order to peddle that. But they were not expecting that casualty to happen and that casualty exploded because the soccer moms was and in my job, I got to read medical records and I was like, I started stroke tallying because, I would come across maybe 500 cases a year. And out of those 500 cases, at least 150 to 200 of them were hooked on either Vicodin or Oxycontin. And these were all working individuals. I worked at AT&T, working class people. And I'm like, damn, they did not expect all of these casualties to happen. But that's what happens when you really mess with Mother Nature. They were really trying to destroy our, right. I mean, Agent Orange. The whole concept
from
of
Vietnam.
So that you can spray it, but they never expected the gust. They never expected that wind to blow back. So the blowback from.
And what I want to hit on is very important to me that we talk about all of those women who were caught up. What happened to their children?
They are still not recovered in any form, way, shape, or form as a mass community. They are suffering. They are struggling, and the degradation of our community is so apparent because of the struggles, and they get the next person caught up, and their friends, their peers, their partners get caught up because of the lack of structure, the lack of just even having conversations with some of the girls at work, and just, I'm like, damn, Like you really don't know. You really don't have an inkling. I mean, you're having a conversation with them about what they wear to work, and they're like absolutely clueless.
Mhm.
No.
So what I want to say too, when I was teaching in CIW, and it's gotten worse, progressively worse through the years. And so when we hear people talk about young people having no respect, they don't have no respect, and they don't do this, and they don't do that, they don't listen, and that kind of stuff. Well, you can understand why, because nobody taught them anything. A lot of them didn't. There was nobody there to teach them. You had already gave incentive and had already taken a lot of the men out of the household. Now you take their mothers, right? Or you, even if they're there, they're addicted and they're stealing from them, and they're, I mean, there's just so many scenarios. Yes.
You break their mother.
Yes.
There's a difference. You break their mother.
Yeah.
Having a conversation with my daughter's friends, junior high school. Little girl says, my daughter says, Mom, can she spend the night? My house was the house. I said, yeah, she can spend the night. She shows up at 8 o'clock, no backpack, no clothes. I said, where's your mother? And she's like, huh? I'm like, let me talk to your mother. Oh, my mom said it was okay. I said, I don't say it's okay until I talk to your mother. She got mad because she done left the house and her mother didn't speak good English. And I said, well, it doesn't matter to me. I need to know that it's okay with you because she done showed up at my house with this little bitty bag. She don't have any pajamas. She doesn't have a toothbrush. And honey, I ain't the one to play with. Well, I'm not having it. So no, we're gonna take you home. And I took her home and I left her there. The next girl, she comes out, she's weighing, as a middle school, she's weighing between 270 and 300, and she comes out the house and walks to my house in Daisy Dukes. And first thing I did was march her ass upstairs to my mirror. And my daughter was like, Mom, and I was like, no, I want you to look in the mirror and tell me that this is okay for you to walk outside. And then we going back to your house and I'm gonna have a conversation with your mother. And her mother was high. And I said, okay, well, you can't go nowhere with me dressed like that. You're gonna have to put on some presentable clothes and let's talk about having that conversation. But even at work, when I was a service rep, I would have conversations with girls about, I say, come to work presentable, but you got holes in your jeans or you got on midriff tops. And I'm like, that's not presentable. And the girl finally told me, she was like you talking shit to me. I know what that is. But she's like, but I looked in the, she said, I did look in the mirror. I'm clean. And I'm like, oh my God.
I don't know what you're talking about. Miss Di, how many times have I said to you, you say that, but you assume that they know what that means.
Yes, I do.
So many times I say that to her, working with the people that my nonprofit organization employs, as well as work with these people. She will have concepts. So Diane's history is working in a very big corporation. Okay. That's corporate structure, corporate norms, and all of those things. And she also has her own work ethic. So there's certain things that just don't make sense to her. Right. But I would have to explain to her, our organization is mission driven and we trying to employ people in the community that nobody else is going to employ. So that is a part of our mission. So we tolerate more than other organizations or companies would. But there's a thing that we will speak in terms and in a construct that they don't know anything about. One of the young ladies in the prison, the older women were complaining because the young women coming in here, they disrespectful, they're not clean, they don't know how to take care of themselves. It was on and cracking. Well, one of the young ladies, she said, instead of talking about them, you might want to teach them, because nobody taught me how to properly clean myself until I came to prison. She was a 25-year-old young girl. Beautiful blonde hair, blue-eyed girl. And she said, nobody ever taught me to properly clean myself until I came to prison. So the idea that when we say, well, what's presentable? Come presentable. Well, I don't even know what that is. She was coming presentable. What she tell you? She said, I was clean. I was clean.
and she said, you know, I
And-
tell me what you want.
And this is the thing, there was no mother there.
No, her mother was dead.
There was, and see, that's another thing, right? One of the things that I would teach the women in and encourage them in CIW, because often the mother conversation will come up, and like I say, it didn't hit me until today, talking to the men at Solano, how prevalent it is in people who are incarcerated, that the mother, there's a wound there where the place where the mother feels. And it could be neglect, abuse, or whatever. But I used to try to encourage them to look at their mothers as people first,
Right.
and then a mother. Why? Because if you go back in their history, the
Trauma.
wounds that, right, now we unpacking their trauma.
But your mother lived without you. Never lived without you.
Right, you've never lived
Right.
without your mom, right? And you don't know what her trauma is. You don't, because guess what? Guess what? As women, we also don't spew that out all over everybody either. Why? Normally because we are running so fast trying to survive that we don't have time to whine and complain about that. And those mothers that do usually are the ones where the kids wind up acting like they're the parents. Because they feel the need, oh, let me help mama, yeah, well, guess what? Mama got to get up on her own 2 feet. But at the same time, mothers that have had their own trauma and nobody ever taught them how to deal with it, they can't pass along to you what they don't have. But I'm really, because I'm gonna say this, it's only been us women talking, and I need to hear from y'all men. Anybody had trauma? Speak up, say something.
I'm gonna say something. I didn't have trauma, but my mom, she had an alcohol problem. She was always there. She always taught me things, but I came to resent that because I couldn't control it. And as time went on, I became something that I resented, because I was an addict at one time.
Okay.
And I resented it, but I love it. She had a lot of struggle, but she kept the household up. Like you said back in the day, women struggled a lot with things. They had trauma, but they kept pushing.
They kept pushing.
Right. When dad wasn't there, he's not there. We're gonna keep pushing. We're gonna still put food on the thing. She worked every day. She was a functioning addict.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And until I got older and did all that time, I had to look at it, what it was. Like, just to make excuse. I was like, well, man, this is my mom's comfort zone.
Right.
But really, she was an addict.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
And I had to learn to deal with it, and work through it, and like I said, my mom was the best. My dad, he ran the streets like he was there. I always knew where he was, but him and my mom could never stay together. But at the same time, my mom kept pushing, and I understand that. Like you said, when they took women out of the household, they destroyed their family. Everything felt like sand. You know what I'm saying? And it is a lot of women out here that's on drugs, and their daughter, they only gonna do what they know. If their mom's doing this, they gonna do it.
I mean, because you can hate it. You can. I mean, I know that I'm a clear exception to the rule. Yeah, I don't know. Just by the grace of whatever it is, because at one point in time, I literally was the only person over 18 who didn't have a criminal record. So I survived it. I think school was very big for me because I took to that and I stuck to it. But everybody I know did not, looking back, I know didn't have the opportunities that I had, and they didn't have the protection. My uncles was like, don't touch her. Yeah. Don't touch her. Don't say nothing to her. None of that stuff. Whereas, some kids, they didn't have those uncles, or they had them uncles that was touching them, yeah. or things of that nature. So I know I had this little protection and things, and I had this foundation of them honing those things into me, even though I could see what it is, what they were doing. But that piece of me watching, like I watched my friends with mothers who were homemakers, who were just Susie homemakers, sweet and everything, and they got that one hit, and I was like, damn, and I'm like, wait, like her mother used to make cookies, and now I see her floating down the alley and stuff like that. And so I was like, now that I can just put it all back, I can see it's not just about taking that mother out. Like I said, it's about the destruction of the woman. And it was almost by design. If I show you that your mother is not invincible, I'm going to teach you how I'm just going to sit there and break you down. And that's what they did to a certain point. Like I said, I still feel like we just haven't recovered. We've gotten worse because we went from crack to meth, to pills, to pills, to
fentanyl.
Yeah.
all of these different things that have been introduced to us, and it doesn't give us the opportunity to heal like we're supposed to, and so it becomes more of our responsibility.
And one more thing is like you said, we'll complain about it, but we don't do too much about it. You have to be able to understand, because that can be any one of us with an addiction. You know what I'm saying? Instead of us trying to understand it, we will condemn it.
Right, because that's what society has taught us to do.
Exactly.
Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? It's an addiction. You know, it's an illness. I was like, it's not an illness.
It's a choice. Yeah, and it's so not. And it's so not. It's so not. It starts off as one, but it doesn't stay a choice. You know, because I can very specifically remember. In my history, before I had my son, before it was actually, and I was fortunate that I did this before it was crack. Okay.
Right.
I spent 2 days freebasing.
Yeah.
And I could hear it in my head as plain as day. If you don't get up from here right now, you have a problem with this. And wait, that last the pipe came around, the $20 I had just spent, I made sure that was done. And I got up, I ain't touched cocaine not another day from that day to this day. Because I heard that in my head. But what it did for me was it gave me compassion. When you fast forward some years, I got a son, I'm living in a building, the right across the street, the prostitutes work this right in front of this medical center, and they're out all night, and their kids can't sleep in the building because where the building is used to be a vacant lot. So it was no problem for them to work right there at night because they weren't disturbing anybody. But now that we have an apartment building there with families, the dynamic is different. And so I'm out the window. Hey, y'all gonna have to go somewhere down the street or something. Y'all can't do this right here. Well, when I would see them, I would even be intervening between them and the pimp and a bunch of stuff from the balcony. I mean, it was something. But the one thing I always used to feel was, thank heavens I listened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ooh, because but by the grace of something higher than me, that could have been me, right? It gave me a compassion, like an addiction. You don't. People think it's a choice, and it may start out as a choice, but it don't stay a choice. It don't stay a choice, and it can be. I mean, and addiction is addiction is addiction. It doesn't even matter what it is. I know a lady had the right top lung lobe of her lung removed, and she used to sneak and smoke cigarettes and come in the office not realizing I smell them cigarettes. I smell it all over you. We ride down the street, I'm trying to get her attention, and she's so busy trying to light the cigarette before she get to the office, and I'm beeping the horn, hey, hey. She never did see me. Because the addiction, and even with cigarettes, they have engineered them to be more addictive.
And that's what I was going to say. Watching my family go from that elitist of cocaine to crack, and me not understanding what's the difference. But what I could see was the possessiveness that they were having, and then they started making just stupid mistakes, and they started going to jail more. And I'm looking at them. I'm a teenager, and then a young adult, and I'm like, damn, like, wait a minute, y'all, what has changed? And it wasn't, till we found out that chemical combination
it was
changed.
engineered.
It was another engineering factor. It was done.
It was engineered. It was scientifically. And listen, we don't grow no coca leaves over here. Coca leaves over here. Sorry, not Air One. Nowhere here. We don't grow that here.
You know what too? It's like when they had an addiction, it's like you send a person to a drug rehab. Because I remember when I went to the drug rehab, right, and the lady told my mom that we can't make him go. And I sit like we sitting right now, and I didn't go. and I left, and I seen the hurt on my mom's face, on my brother's face.
Right.
And 2 weeks later, I was in jail.
Mm.
So with a life sentence, my lifestyle led into that. I was bitter a whole lot,
Right.
and I had to learn that.
Fighting your
Like I tell people today, you can even ask somebody, you understand? If you understand it, then explain it to them. Because people are quick to say, well, I understand. You know?
Yeah.
You understand, explain it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, and some people get hooked on drugs or whatever, and they don't bounce back.
Oh,
They
yeah.
don't
They
bounce
never
back.
do. Yeah. Yeah.
Chemical makeup, the DNA, the whole thing, the way it hits that piece of your brain or what have you. That's why there's so many varying degrees and stages of it.
Yeah.
It really goes like that. I've seen the same two people hit the pipe at the, right one behind the other, and one is sitting there chilling and what have you. The other one is over there picking up ants off the floor. So there's it's all up in
Chemistry
the air.
and stuff.
Right. It's all chemistry because, it's 2024 and we can't really cure the common cold. We still got all these medicines.
It kind of go back to, like you said, when white society gets involved and it affects them, and then they so-called want to do something about it.
Man.
But as long as it was affecting us, they had every reason not to,
Yes.
So
yes.
I'm just sad because one thing I know is, again, the harm that's done when fathers are removed from a person's life.
Right.
But we never talk about the ultimate damage, because see, I know I one of the things I could say I know is a common theme among men that I know whose fathers were absent, or any variation on a theme, whether they were present and still absent or actually absent, is they have a tendency not to feel worthy. They have a self-worth issue. Am I good enough? Am I enough? That is a common theme. So my question, and I'm sure that I will be pondering the way my crazy mind works, I'll be pondering, what is that common theme when the mom is missing? When I get things like this come to me, I really do have to dig in and start trying to understand what is that, because we got to be able to heal from that, and you can't heal what you don't understand. And what are the common themes? And it's the kind of thing where, because again, the reason is not all the same, right? And of course, the age of the child at which a mother is removed from the equation also makes a difference, right? So smaller children, if it's too early, they get disassociation disorder where they don't relate to nothing.
Yes.
If it's too early.
Yes.
But then there's a period of time where they may be able to rebound better, and then they run right into puberty, which is the absolute worst time for to lose a mom or any parent for any big upheaval. Puberty is like the worst time for that to happen to a child. So it'd be interesting to me, and I like I said, I'm sure this is gonna be something that I'll be pondering, because I want to know how to help people relate, aside from the fact that yes, they were people first, but what is it that is that common theme that happens when that mother is removed? What is it that we feel? See, I was like super blessed in this regard. And I would say it's nothing but blessed. And it wasn't because I was no more special than nobody else. I was blessed to have a great mom who really, and it's crazy because my mother didn't have a mother. My grandmother died. My mother was 3 years old, but my mother was a phenomenal mother, not just to me, but to everybody she came in contact with. And so how she learned how to do that, I don't know. I don't know whether it was just let me do what I needed, what I would have liked to have done for me. I wish I had enough foresight at that time to ask her, but I don't know what it's like not to have that. And then when she passed, I was adopted by, and I was 40 plus years old. And I had another woman who was so similar to her, Betty Day, to suck me up into her family. and mother me for until 2022. So there's I was doubly blessed because I had two forces of nature to mother me. And so I don't know what it's like not to have it. And I got like a huge in the pit of my stomach, like, oh my gosh, thinking about it now in this context and realizing just how many people had this issue. But again, the crazy part about it to me is think about it like this. This is how you know how serious it could be. Think about it like this. If it was in elementary school or anywhere, what was the one thing that was sure to set off a fight? Your mama. Talk about my mama, right? Talk about somebody's mama. He said something about my mama. Why is that? What was that? More fights, more the anger, what is that?
I think it's because
Everybody feel their mom is special.
yeah, we had the love we have for our moms, because like my mom, even though she was an addict, she taught me how to do things, not by what she said, but how she lived, what she did. That's why our moms was the way we were.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They taught us not to go to jail, do this, but we made them choices.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Correct. But
You know, they still laid the example and the foundation for us. So that's why back then, like you said, they started taking the mothers out of the home. Everything is crumbling. That's why the young girls are doing what they're doing today. Yeah. Like you said, the young girls, they didn't know this. Yeah. So they're only doing what they know. You know what I'm saying? People are not teaching. Doing what they see.
Yeah, you got kids, they good and they special, but they go to school, and then I get to school and Roberta over here talk about motherfucker, and I get home and I'm like motherfucker, and and I get popped in the mouth. Mm-hmm. You don't say that, so I learned to hide that.
Right.
When I go back.
Right.
Now I've picked that particular. It's the things that we pick up, and I think I know give some other people the opportunity to respond. But what I wanted to say to you about what you just said was, for me and my family, environment played a heavy role. I have cousins who, even though they were adopted at birth, and have a loving parent, still have disassociation disorder because they know where their mother is. I tried my son's brother. I tried very, very hard with my son to explain to him. I went through a period of explaining to him that he has two mothers, and he went to school and they thought I was gay, and I was like, yeah, if I was, what difference would it make? But no, he has two mothers because of this. I tried very hard to give him. One thing is give him what I thought that I did not have, so that he could understand. And he struggled a bit with his birth mother, but his brother, he's a disassociated fool. Wow. And I think because my son and his brother are 2 of 11, even though there are different mothers, they all have the same father. My uncle, they all have the same father, but they get to see their siblings in groups with their mothers, and I think his brother really, really took it extremely hard. I think he was like me, really understood things at a very early age, because I used to say, that I'd have both of them and they would be like trying to ask my son a question, and I'd be like, oh, he's a little dingy, but this little one over here, he gets it. And I could see in his eyes that he got it, but his disassociation is so huge, he gives a shit about nobody but my son. It was a protection mechanism. And he has a loving mother. She's had him. I've had Melvin since he was 2 days old. She's had his brother since he was 2 days old. And he's, Melvin's 20, his brother's 19. And he like totally checked out on family. Like, I really don't care about them and they people and they what have you. The only thing I see that sparks his interest is my son. And I'm like, he's so disassociated, but I think the environment plays a part in it, you know, because for me, even though my mom wasn't there, you know, I had five fathers
Right.
and they all put their arms around me. I don't see, you know, it's like, okay, my uncle got 4 kids over here, and then he got 2 over here, and then he's got these last 3. They all have different moms. I have Melvin, my aunt has his brother, and the biological mom has the sister. And, you know, it's like his brother's looking at that, and I can see it, you know, when we're together as, you know.
See his mind working.
Yeah, I can see it. I can absolutely see his mind moving with that information, you know, just based on the questions that I ask him, you know.
And you know, when you talked about environment, it made me think of something you said earlier about the young girls prostituting now so much now. And part of that is also environment because and the environment being videos, social media, and all of that. And the only thing that becomes relevant on a young girl is her behind.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
Her
it.
body.
Cash cow, yeah.
Right.
But the desensitizing of our neighborhood.
Yep, and it makes them believe that because that's all you see. That is all, and those are not by happenstance, right? That these are the images that they put into our young girls in our community. Yes.
It's like you just said, school, jails versus school. You have more schools, you have people with more knowledge and more understanding, and it'll be less things like it is now, and they don't want that. You know, just like, and when we go to the board, they look at us like this here. If you have one parent household, you have a dysfunctional family. That's how they look at it. My mom raised us good, regardless of her.
Yes. Yes.
She raised us good. A lot of people have, but that's how they want to look at it, because now you can have people with 2 family members and they have kids that's addicted to drugs. It's like property. A rich person can't tell me how to live if I'm poor, just like I can't tell them how to live. You know, so you know, it's just how it's split.
The design.
Yeah, it's designed by them, you know what I'm saying? But I guess they really hate the fact that we, even though we have a lot of roadblocks in our way, we're a strong race. We're a very strong race.
They've been trying to break it since the day we said.
We're a very strong race.
Well, one of the things I want to say about that too is this: from watching Ava DuVernay's Origins.
Yeah.
It used to be only in America did they use skin color, but it's caste.
Right.
It's your state and condition that you're born into. They want to keep you in that. So if you were dirt poor, so I know the people in the dirt poor areas and the rural areas, they're treated with the same disdain and lack of funding for their schools and lack of services and all of those. It's the same as it is in the projects. I was part of a documentary where Van Jones took 5 of us from South Central, and we met with 5 people from West Virginia. We went to West Virginia. They came here. Then we all went to DC to advocate for substance abuse treatment because there was a definite disparity between how crack was treated and how the opioid addiction was treated. And so we were documenting that. It was a documentary. We spent like over 2 years on this documentary. But I know the one thing that I came away with more than anything is that their struggle is the same. They just live in a rural area where there may be, you know,
it's the same thing.
Well, it's not even hidden for them. It's just that it may be a quarter mile between them and the next family, right? So they're more isolated. And the other thing that I learned and realized from that is that with the opioid addiction, although I've said this before, and Tony, you corrected it or gave a nuance to it, but with the opioids, people were dead. Their parents, they don't even get a chance to come back. Not that people didn't die from crack, but a lot of people got long prison sentences from crack, which, you know, was a form of death, but they may have spent 30, 35 years in the pen and get to come out. But these people's families were dead. Their children are deceased. And it's just, and when you pull that many people out of an environment, it creates holes that makes the community unstable. It destabilizes everything, and that's what happens. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to go around, and I'm going to start. Let's see, I'm going to start. We're gonna need a part two. Okay. The first thing I want to do is I want to start with you, Tony. If you can unmute and give me any of your thoughts on this topic. You say it says you're unmuted, but I can't hear you. I don't know. Let me try to come back to you, Tony. Hilton, and then I'll see if it's Hilton. Can you unmute?
What's up?
Okay. What's your thought on the topic?
You guys talked about a lot. The topic itself was very impressed. I was impressed by the topic.